He doesn't rage. He doesn't go boom. Arnold simply nods, then recalls. And when you're out, you're out. For 4 decades, Schwarzenegger didn't merely reign over the box office. He redefined what a top-billed man looked like. A former bodybuilder who became an icon. A former politician who became a legend. Behind the action and the smile, though, there's something harder. His capacity to recall those who had gained his respect and those who hadn't. Not everybody passed the test. Some of the actors fought. Some of them crossed him. Some simply never made it with him. And when that occurred, Arnold didn't scream. He didn't fight back. He simply took you out of the picture. Conan, the Barbarian, Terminator, Predator, True Lies. His career was shaped in turmoil, but even during the largest explosions, he never lost command. He didn't merely share the screen. He scrutinized who was deserving of sharing it with. And when he did give someone a second chance, he ensured they did it themselves. But most never had that privilege. He's hired dozens, but only a handful made it to the inner circle. The rest fell by the wayside or got axed. Here are the 6 actors Arnold Schwarzenegger couldn't stand on set, off set, or ever again, and why they never returned. Some feuds begin as jokes. Arnold and Bruce Willis began as business associates and ended in silence. Willis wasn't only a co-star, but briefly part of the same machine. Planet Hollywood, red carpets, common sound bites. But beneath the camaraderie, tension existed. Old school versus new school, discipline versus ego. Arnold once observed, some actors lift the scene, some just lift their voice. Their approaches couldn't have been more dissimilar. Arnold was from structure, reps, sets, order. Bruce was loose, improvisational, rough-hewn in a manner Arnold considered sloppy. On The Expendables, things reached a boiling point. Willis was initially committed to the 3rd installment, but after alleged demands for more money and a shorter shooting schedule, it all fell apart. Arnold took offense. When asked why Bruce had dropped out, Arnold tweeted only a word: greedy. Stallone attempted to make up for it, but the harm had already been done. Arnold had come in as his substitute, not only in the film, but within the chemistry of the cast. Behind the scenes, staff revealed that the set became instantly lighter. No on-set drama, no interviews, but just space. At a press conference, Arnold was quizzed about whether he missed collaborating with Bruce. He just grinned and said, "Not everybody is cut out for working together." He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The two never co-starred again. They barely appeared together thereafter. Even at Planet Hollywood birthdays, Bruce would frequently miss them. Arnold remained committed to schedule, to mission. He wasn't concerned with set drama. He was concerned with results. Behind closed doors, crew reported he was respectful, but he was finished giving second chances. He appreciated structure, timing, discipline. He once made it plain, when someone stops showing up, so does my interest. Bruce's approach was too loose, too self-directed, and ultimately too costly. Arnold didn't sever the relationship in a speech. He simply ceased answering the phone. They developed together. They shattered box offices together, but ultimately only one of them continued to arrive punctually. Some directors impose order. James Cameron imposed control. When Arnold agreed to do True Lies, it was a reunion. He and Cameron had already revolutionized Hollywood with The Terminator, but by 1994, things were different. Larger budget, larger pressure, larger egos. And for the first time, Arnold felt like a guest on his own set. He once said, "The director is the captain of the ship, but I'm not built to be a passenger." Cameron wasn't just directing scenes, he was orchestrating chaos. Multiple cameras, months of prep, long shoot days. Arnold liked structure. Cameron liked obsession. And while the film turned out to be a hit, the experience left cracks. On location, Cameron allegedly drove actors to the breaking point. He insisted on perfection. Arnold insisted on efficiency. He prepared, hit his marks, and moved on. Cameron did not move on until everything was perfect. In one interview following the release of the movie, Arnold was asked what the most difficult experience of the shoot had been. He hesitated, then spoke, waiting. The tension never came to a head, but it existed in protracted silences, in stealthy glances during pauses, in the expression Arnold shared when a scene was reshot for the 5th time. They survived True Lies, but they never collaborated on another project. Even when sequels were bandied about and fans demanded reunions, nothing came of it. Cameron continued to construct worlds. Arnold returned to franchises that went faster, neater. He never publicly denounced Cameron, but he never advocated for another team-up either. One journalist once inquired whether he and Cameron would team up again. Arnold grinned and replied, "It depends on how long he wants to shoot one scene." There was no animosity, merely exhaustion. Arnold respected vision, but not at the expense of momentum. He didn't dislike Cameron, but didn't need Cameron either. And after True Lies, he demonstrated that. Some feuds become public, others remain behind closed gym doors. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Richard Gere only occasionally met, but one of those encounters supposedly ended in silence that lasted decades. The tale drifts in Hollywood like a myth: 2 young stars, a single martial arts studio, an argument that became physical. No charges, no cameras, just tension that never got resolved. Arnold once declared, "I don't start fights, but I remember who does." Their personalities never meshed. Gere was aloof, methodical, image-conscious. Arnold was open, disciplined, and deeply physical. On screen, they never collaborated. Off-screen, they never again spoke. Together they both were taking off in the 1980s, Gere with American Gigolo and Pretty Woman, Arnold with Predator and The Terminator. They were both leading men, but Arnold never considered Gere an equal. In a mid-90s interview, asked which actors he thought well of, Arnold ran down a few names, then stopped and said, "There are some actors who look the part." That's where it stops. Years later, Stallone fanned the flames. He said in an interview that Arnold and Gere had to be split up during a group lunch, and a lingering resentment over a studio contract might have been the source. Arnold never verified it, but he never disputed it either. In the background, Gere apparently had his name taken off a joint event when he discovered Arnold would be there. Publicly, nothing happened, but the coldness became routine. They socialized in different worlds, award shows, charities, even gym endorsements, but their names never appeared on the same cast sheet. Arnold preferred actors who showed respect for the room, the pace, the intensity. Gere operated differently, too cautious, too remote. When questioned during a 2000s press junket about actors with whom he didn't get along, Arnold smiled and replied, "Sometimes energy just doesn't align. That's okay. You just keep your distance." For Arnold, that distance never receded, and Richard Gere never entered his sphere again. Not all rivalries are made in public. Some begin in flex silence. In the 90s, Jean-Claude Van Damme was on the rise, touted as the next action big thing. But Arnold didn't perceive a successor. He perceived a threat, one he never did regard. They never collaborated, never worked a set together. But in the background, it was personal. Van Damme coveted what Arnold enjoyed: box office supremacy, franchise strength, and world domination. And studios were content to feed the competition for a time. But Arnold never bit. One insider recalled him saying, "He's not competition. He's choreography." The comparison annoyed him. Arnold trained with military consistency. Van Damme trained for spin kicks. That wasn't disrespect, it was a difference in philosophy. They were almost face-to-face on Predator. Van Damme was initially cast as the monster, but the role soon fell apart amidst conflicts with the crew, scheduling problems, and Van Damme allegedly walking off the set. Arnold never publicly commented on it, but subsequent interviews left his position no longer in question. During a press conference for T2, Arnold was questioned regarding the next generation of action heroes. He grinned and said, "Some of them look fantastic doing backflips, but they don't last." He did not have to call names. The two showed up together years later at events, panels, red carpets. But the vibe was icy. There are pictures. There was no friendship. Van Damme attempted to mend the bridge. He took interviews with the media stating Arnold inspired him, referred to him as a legend. Arnold only nodded one time in response and said nothing more. Eventually, When questioned about actors who are too self-conscious in their attempts to impress, Arnold replied, "I notice when somebody's looking at themselves too much, it gets in the way of the work." That was Arnold's last statement, a courteous dismissal. Quiet, incisive, and irretrievable. Van Damme wasn't despised, but never was he welcomed. And in Arnold's world, that was all that was necessary. Some actors attempt to project toughness, others don't have to. Steven Seagal entered Hollywood with swagger and a bullseye on his back. He made enemies quick. But with Arnold, the tension wasn't bombastic, it was quiet and lasting. Seagal allegedly ripped Arnold apart behind the scenes, referred to him as not a real martial artist, told him he was simply a bodybuilder. But Arnold did not react. He didn't have to. He used to say, "Real power doesn't talk about itself." At the beginning of the 90s, Seagal's name was everywhere all at once. A-list premieres, martial arts publications, studio buzz. But Arnold was chill. He never shared a stage, a scene, or a spotlight with him. In interviews, Seagal would name drop. He'd compare. He'd make veiled attacks. Arnold never took the bait. At a press event in 1991, a reporter asked if Arnold considered Seagal a rival. Arnold reportedly laughed and said, "Only if we're competing in slow motion." From that point on, the divide was public, but not mutual. Seagal kept pushing. Arnold kept moving. They were once booked at the same charity event. Arnold reportedly asked to change the seating chart quietly, without making it an issue. That was his style. Years later, when asked if he respected Seagal's work, Arnold replied, "He's made a lot of movies. That's all I'll say." No insult, but no praise either. Arnold's issue wasn't ego, it was attitude. He valued preparation, patience, respect for crew. Seagal had a reputation for the opposite, on sets, in interviews, behind closed doors. Where Arnold was calculated, Seagal was chaotic. Where Arnold established trust, Seagal torched bridges. And the moment Arnold realized that pattern, he kept his distance. There were no partnerships, no making up, and no desire to alter that. Steven Seagal wished to be regarded seriously. Arnold just didn't. Occasionally, it is not what one says, it is the energy they bring into the room. Tom Hardy never fought with Arnold Schwarzenegger. No shouting match, no argument. But from the first meeting, Arnold kept his distance. It wasn't talent. Arnold admired Hardy's work. What he didn't admire was the attitude. Hardy had a reputation. Intense on set, hyper-focused, sometimes challenging. He arrived with power and presence, but Arnold didn't interpret that as strength. He interpreted it as noise. He once explained, "Intensity is good, but if it blocks the room, it's useless." The two were to share a panel in 2015. Arnold dropped out at the last minute. No explanation given, but off stage. Insiders explained he didn't want to be the mentor figure to someone who didn't need one. At another function, Hardy was asked which actors had inspired him. He lauded Brando, De Niro, even Stallone, but not Arnold. When somebody later said that to Arnold, he responded, "He's intense. Maybe too intense for a conversation." It wasn't shade, it was dismissal. They were close to being attached to a picture together, a military action film. Hardy played the lead. Arnold was offered supporting. He turned it down without explanation. A cast member later explained that he didn't say no due to the script. He said no due to the vibe. They'd shared stages, conversed through press cycles. But body language does all the work. No chemistry, no heat, two men with highly dissimilar codes. Arnold based a career on control. Hardy operated on unpredictability. The energy did not blend. No public falling out, no blow-up. But in Arnold's universe, just a glance of the room was all it took to make a decision. No drama necessary. And with Hardy, it took him no time at all to size you up. He never yelled at anyone. He didn't debate. He just sized you up, then walked away. Some actors bothered him, some never got as far as that. He didn't care for drama. He cared about discipline. And if you hadn't shown up with that, you weren't around. They were not enemies, but they were not friends either. Because in Arnold's universe, respect wasn't given. It was earned by means of silence, consistency, and knowing when to close up and get the job done. So who else do you think got up Arnold's nose or almost made the cut? Leave your suggestions in the comments. And if you'd like to get access to the next round of What's Behind the Curtain, subscribe and join the channel. Because with